So, this is a little pilot podcast called In the Making that we're doing just for fun. My name is Chelsea Smith. I'm a writer, I'm a producer, I'm a singer songwriter. And I thought I'd sit down with my brother, who's also a multidisciplinary artist, Ben Christopher. And I'll let him introduce himself. But we're going to talk about just the creative process, kind of how it's messy, how it's engaging, how it sucks, and how we, try to live our life as artists and also make a living. So, Ben, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ben. Oh, more.
Yeah.
I'm a screenwriter, a songwriter, and a code writer. I'm a founder of SpeedRead AI, which is write script and book coverage, analyzing screenplays and books using AI.
Yeah, so that was one reason I wanted to talk to you. You have such like a interesting sort of diverse set of creative skills, all of which you've kind of taught yourself. I mean, you did get a degree in creative writing, right?
Fiction writing, yeah.
In fiction writing. So was writing your first love, or how did you get into all these different creative endeavors?
Um, yeah, I think writing was, our parents were writers, so I remember when I was in high school, I said, I guess we were going around introducing ourselves, and apparently I was like, my name's Ben, and I'm going to write books. And then the teacher's like, are you Marcia Smith's kid? So he knew that I was, we come from a lineage of aspiring writers.
Loud, aspiring writers, yes. So tell me about your artistic practice, kind of the evolution of it over time and how it ebbs and flows.
Oh, interesting. Uh, I kind of went through a phase where it was like, before, I used to just be kind of relentless about it all the time. It was just like the only thing I cared about, and everything else was. And then I got to the point where I lost a lot of the joy in it, I think, and I just kind of became like a one man factory trying to pump things out. And sometimes that was fun, and then sometimes it was like putting too much pressure on myself for reasons that I don't know. These self imposed deadlines, these things that nobody is asking for necessarily. Like I would always be surprised when I talk to people and they'd be like, "You're so prolific," and I'd be like, "I do not feel prolific. I feel like extremely slow and getting slower." And then I would like shame myself over that. So now I've kind of come back into just trying to balance it. It's not the be all end all. I try to detach art and commerce in my mind a little bit because I think it's starting to poisoning the well. Where it's like, oh, but I have to make a living doing this thing, and it's like, no, I actually have a lot of talents. I can make a living a lot of ways, and I am very busy. That's for sure. But also like the more busy I am, I'm busier now than I was 3 years ago by a factor of like 30. But that also has shown me like, oh, I can actually do a lot. Like what was I doing back then? You know what I mean? Like what was I spending my time doing?
I've heard a
So
lot of
now I'm like,
parents say that, like they just can't believe how much free time they used to have. It's like they can't conceive of it now.
yeah. So I've realized that there's time to, there's time for business and there is time for art, and I like popular art, so I would love to sell more art, but at the same time, that's not it is kind of always the goal with screenwriting. You want someone to make it, so you have to sell it to the person making it. So there's definitely that's kind of a unique form of art in that sense. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to have more fun with it again because I definitely got I managed to make it joyless for a while.
Yes, as we do. So how do you get back on that inspiration kick? Like how do you bring that joy back, or release yourself from expectations?
You have to be willing to disappoint the part of you that was already disappointed in you. You know what I mean? Like I'm always trying to please this like I was always trying to please this part of me that was like, you're not doing enough. It's like, well, that guy's not going to be happy either way. So let's just really let him down and let's take a sabbatical here for a minute without any plans for, you know what I mean? Just, and then that part of you slowly shrivels up and dies because you're not, feeding the shame monster. So yeah, just kind of like letting yourself down in a way, and then rediscovering it on your own timetable. You know, if you've
Yeah.
lost the joy, as I had. And there's always, like, for me, it was switching focus to, like, well, okay, well, what is inspiring? You know, rather, you don't want to jump around from project to project, but if you're going through a crisis, then definitely switch gears and find something else. And for me, it was just switching to some essays and fiction writing and things like where I just had fun, um, and short stories and stuff. And then, slowly realizing that I hate writing short stories and I want to go back to writing movies, but I had to. So yeah, I don't know.
I feel like that with covers. Like there are times where I'm like, I'm not writing enough. It's been months since I wrote a new song. And yeah, like you said, you beat yourself up and like it's so stupid to be doing that because like literally no one cares. Like, but somehow we're like really riding ourselves to create. And I think maybe because we're in this content creation world now and that's part of the pressure. But with music, I always go back to covers and playing other people's songs and watching YouTube videos of musicians and trying to learn a new song. And that always lifts me up because I remember that like, okay, like even if I never write another song again, I can still enjoy music. I can still enjoy all of this. And it releases me of feeling like I'm abandoning myself.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like you kind of have to determine, like, you don't want to lose momentum, right? That's what everyone always says, and it's true in anything,
Yeah.
in business, or you want to keep momentum. But there is value in realizing if you've already lost it and stop pretending like I gotta keep the momentum going. It's like you are dragging ass and you're not getting anything done. Like your momentum's gone, and that's okay. You need a reset.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So there's pretending like you're clinging to some momentum that you felt a month ago isn't. It's a fine line. There's that
Yeah.
discipline, and then there's also the self care aspect of it.
Well, the forcing too. This happened with me at the album. I tried to make this album that we're making a year ago and it wasn't clicking. The people weren't available, the resources weren't available. I kept pushing and pushing for about 2 months to try and make it happen, and it wasn't happening. And yeah, at some point I was like, stop,
Yeah.
pause. And I had to wait another 6 or 9 months before the stars aligned, but they did. And now we're moving forward and it's exciting. But I had to realize that I was pushing too hard at some point. So there's definitely the happy medium because some people don't push hard enough. And then some of us maybe try to force things to happen sometimes that aren't ready to happen.
Yeah.
Some people who don't think of themselves as creative, we're all creative, right? Like I think we all can embrace our creativity in various ways, but I think people who don't think of themselves as like artists or creatives think that we make stuff because we have this really strong vision and we know exactly what we want and it kind of comes out mostly done. And that's like a real myth, at least in my creative practice. It's messy, it's sloppy. There's 1,000 unfinished projects. And for every 100 unfinished projects, you might finish one. Maybe that's a little bit of exaggeration, but how do you respond to that when I say that?
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten to the point where I think it was the last script I was starting. I had like this inspiration kick where I'm like, okay, then this happens, this happens. I saw it all, and I'm like, huh. I wonder what this is actually going to end up being because I know none of that stuff is going to make it. It's just nothing survives, the long trip to the end of the road. If you make it to the end of to the finished product, it's like you look back at your notes, and you're like, oh, I was so naive, all those months ago. I really thought I had it all figured out, and it just changes and changes, and you iterate and iterate, or you don't, and then you just have a first draft, and that's fine for some people. But like when I'm approaching writing a book or writing fiction, I want it to be something I would want to read. That's like my main goal, and that should be my main goal for screenwriting as well. But it has become. I think I've been kind of just trying. I've been caught up in trying to find, okay, what's going to sell? What's something that could sell? Because it's like, oh, even a movie I would want to see, it's like, oh, am I going to spend a year writing it and then no one wants it because for whatever inane reason? And with a book, that's fine because at the end of the day, you have a book. But with a script, at the end of the day, you have something no one's going to read. It's a script. No one reads scripts. Like,
Mm,
no sane person reads screenplays for fun,
for
you
fun,
know?
right? Yeah. Yeah.
There's a higher pressure there for like, oh, the idea's got to be, and I kind of just like decided, and I was getting really depressed about it in like last fall, and I just kind of consciously and unconsciously decided like I'm gonna stop trying to come up with an idea, and that's when I started Substack and writing on there, and just like I'm just gonna have fun again and be inspired because I need to be writing something, and it's like I'm not gonna write this stupid cyber thriller that I don't even want to see. So it's like fuck it, I'm just gonna do something else because I'm not inspired. And then ironically today I had an idea where I was like, oh, that would be fun, and it was kind of inspired by what I'm going through in my life. So, and I haven't had one of those ideas in like 6 months, so that felt good. That was nice to have those ideas. Where you're like, oh, I can see that. That would be fun to
That's
write about.
something I'm excited about. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, something you're kind of pointing to is that tension between pleasing yourself as an artist and pleasing the audience. I find that that's a challenge in any art, and like there's this kind of concept in film and music where it's kind of like one for you and one for me, where it's like I'm going to make this song or this project for the audience, and then this one's now I've got your attention. Now I've got something else I want to show you that maybe wasn't as like audience friendly. I feel like with music sometimes I do that, and I know artists who are like, I don't care what sells, I don't care what the audience thinks. That's a that's a position that you can take. I feel like I'm an entertainer, so I do feel like responsibility to the audience, but it's all a ploy to get my message in and the things I want to say and do. And yeah, like I kind of feel like I'm tricking people into listening sometimes.
gotcha.
That's my music perspective, but I'd be curious how you feel like from the writing perspective.
Um, yeah, yeah. For because I think like for music, I for sure just do what I like. I don't really care. I mean, I do care. I just don't. I don't know. I assume no one else will like it with my music. With writing, I really like things to be taught. Like I want it to be like perfect in a way that like the experience is like, oh, I just keep reading because I love that feeling when I'm reading a book and I'm like, oh, I'm just on to the next chapter. Oh, I'm just on to the next chapter. How
Mm,
is he or she
just
doing this in their
gripping.
writing? How are they doing that? And it's so, or a movie where you're like, oh, that was only 90 minutes. It was so tight. Like I like that personally. I think anything. I think so. I always want to achieve that in a sense. Like to me, that's the holy grail because it's like then it doesn't matter if I'm doing something that is commercial or not. If it's fucking gripping the whole time, like there you go. You can't
Yeah.
put it down. So that's like the holy grail for me. That does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. It's kind of getting into that happy middle again. I mean, like you're thinking of yourself as an audience member, which you are. You're an audience member for your own art.
I wanna, yeah, and like I'm working. I've got this book that I write on and off, and there's some really self-indulgent parts of it that I'm like, how am I? There's like, oh, in the middle of it, I have this idea for in the middle of it, there's this novella of this like navel-gazing novella that's only tangentially related to everything. But I still, I'm like, how can I do that in a way that doesn't alienate people? Because going back to movies, like every movie is too long. They're all too long, and everyone thinks it's okay, and it's not okay. It's like
You're
there's
wasting my time.
I forget who I think it's not Mark Twain. It's one of those misattributed quotes. But someone was like, I'm sorry this letter is so long. I didn't have time to write a shorter one because anyone can just vomit out stuff. It takes a lot of effort to make something tight,
Brief,
and
succinct, yeah.
you are wasting people's time. And at some point, your self-contained novella is just masturbatory. So it's like there's this fine line.
Well, yeah, and what you're saying is like I'm sure a lot of, the general public would agree, but actually what you're saying is a little controversial in the art world because people take their art really seriously and they're I'm a programmer for a film festival. I watch a lot of indie movies. You're right, a lot of them are way too long. Like there's just no doubt about that, and I can't even program some of them, even if I do like them, because I don't want people to walk out of the theater. So, like, even as a programmer, I have to strike that balance of like, this is a great film, but who's the audience really for this, and will they sit through this whole thing? It really depends on the environment. We're at a music festival, so people won't sit through a 3-hour movie. I can't do that at the music
Yeah.
festival. But like I do think there's like a lot of controversy with what you just said in the art community because, I don't know, the self-importance that artists have, it goes too far sometimes, I think is what you're saying.
Everyone thinks that they're making, you know, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, which is the only movie I can remember that was like close to 3 hours that felt like it needed to be. Like even Oppenheimer's, like yeah, it would have been so easy to cut 40 minutes off that. I love that movie, but I'm just saying like you're not making a movie that needs to be that long. If you are, you're not. Maybe you're making a mini series, and even those are padded. You know, it's. I have very strong feelings about that. Yeah, I just feel like everyone thinks it's like they're it's just you're not killing your darlings. You're like, oh, but this is a good idea and this is a good idea. It's like, yeah, your story doesn't start till page 40, so maybe you're not doing it right. You know, like maybe you're writing a book because you can do that in books. Books are like no one sits down and like this book is taking forever. Like usually maybe you'll get again if it drags in the middle, yeah, you might lose interest, but it's like that's as a long form it's not something where someone's supposed to sit down and consume it all at once. It's like, well, if that's the goal, then you better respect their time. Or even television shows, it's like you're supposed to sit down and watch a full episode. So that needs to be tight because it's not because people have short attention spans. It's because it's presumptuous to think that you're entitled to their time.
Yeah, and I do think, and I think we both feel similarly about that. I think our perspective comes from being raised by commercial writers in many
Oh,
ways
maybe,
because
yeah, maybe.
mom and dad trained us that way. I know growing up, mom would be like, say it in fewer words, say it in fewer words. Like I hear her saying that in my head. But I think there is something to that because with editing video too, how much can you cut and still get the same message and the same download that you're trying to do? It's actually a really good exercise in creativity. And you're right. It like forces you to be tighter and stronger and tighter and stronger. And the longer you lag, the less of the impact that the art sometimes has.
Yeah, and that's part of the iteration process because you shouldn't be worrying about that in your first draft.
Right.
But you
That's the
shouldn't.
problem. Yeah. People
But
worry
you
about that
shouldn't.
too early.
You shouldn't be sharing your first draft either. You know, like there's like have
Besides core
fun.
collaborators. Yeah. Not
No,
even
you're
core.
wasting. No,
Okay.
do a
Draft
pass.
two. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I can't stand it when I read someone's rough draft. It's like, oh, you didn't have time to read this, but you expect me to have time to read it. But that rarely happens. Most people, at least, I don't know. I mean, it's yeah. The better you get at something, the more you realize you weren't as good as you thought you were back, last week or last year. And so, I don't know.
That
I
being
don't know what
said,
to talk.
though, you shouldn't sit on a draft forever because you're afraid to show it to people. Because I think that's the tendency people have is like, it's not ready, it's not ready. It's like, that's fine. Like, share
We
it,
should.
get feedback, move forward. Don't sit on it forever.
Well, sitting achieves nothing.
Yeah.
If you're working on it, okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, like just
tweaking the
tweaking.
dials.
Yeah, too much, over tweaking and overthinking. Like sometimes you got to get someone else to give you some reflection back because you're just like, you're too close. You're not seeing the picture anymore.
And I actually find one of the easiest ways to get perspective is to share it with someone, email it, and then immediately reread it. And you'll find all the things you somehow didn't see right
Yeah.
before you sent it.
Oh, that's so true. That's so real.
You go, actually read this draft instead.
Actually, this is an updated version.
Hey, Ted.
What are the habits that help you when you're like when you're in your best mode for creative practice? What do you need?
It's tricky. So they always say like you find the time of day that are the best. Like when you work best, and then set that time aside. And like I was always trying to write in the morning, and I can do some writing in the morning. Sometimes it's hard to get up. Sometimes, especially before the little monster wakes up. Like waking up before him is like how am I gonna do that? But also I'm not inspired in the morning ever. It's always like I can like pound through it, and I think there's value. I think there's value in pounding through it. I'm inspired at night, but I don't want to like flesh those things out. And like I don't want to actually. I want to journal about ideas at night.
Yeah.
I don't want to execute ideas at night. In the morning, I don't want to do either, but I force myself to execute. So that's kind of like the balance I find where like at night I let my mind play. A lot of it's also because at night is when ingesting entertainment, more like I'm watching a movie or a TV show or reading a book, and that's inspiring to me. So then I get ideas, and in the morning I'm just kind of
Crank
punching
it.
myself in the back of the head. Yeah, go.
I think that's a really good point to differentiate between brainstorming and concepting and the actual execution and work. They are different parts of your brain, and there might be different emotions and different states of being for you. And don't try to make them one thing. Like they can be separate parts of the process.
Yeah, and I think for me personally, they had to be because I found this was just like maybe as recently as like a year ago. I found like, oh, I spent 3 hours writing, and all I did was just journal like 10 pages. I did that every day, and it's like, oh, you're avoiding doing the actual. You don't want to write that scene. You know what I mean? So you're just
Yeah.
like, let's rethink Act Two. It's like, no, how about you write that goddamn scene?
Ugh. Yeah. It's amazing how many cool things I create trying to avoid something I don't feel like
Yeah.
fixing. Yeah. Yeah. You finished a lot of screenplays and stories, um, more than anyone I know, probably dozens and dozens over the years. So, how do you finish things? Because that seems to be like a thing that a lot of people have a hard time doing, myself included. I have a lot of like half written stories.
Yeah. I think it was just because I've the last year I've had trouble finishing things too, and part of it's just because I'm like I don't think this is worth. I know how long these things take. I get halfway in, I'm like I don't think this is it.
Mm.
Like or maybe this is a book, but like I'm gonna stop investing time into this because I don't want to write another insert name of script I wrote that wasn't good. Um, I think just finishing one really makes you realize you can finish things.
Yeah.
So like you just finish it, and then you're like, oh, I can do that, and then you just eventually you hit the point where you expect yourself to finish it, and when you expect yourself to finish it, then you will, even though it's hard. If you expect yourself to not finish it, you won't.
You'll fulfill your own expectations.
Yeah. So how do you get to that point? I don't know. Just it's hard, but you can do it. It's
Well,
not that hard. It's all the mental
it's
part.
very mental. It's so mental. Well,
Can I smoke in here?
no.
Oh, okay.
You're finishing an album. Is there a name of the album?
Yeah, it's called Glendale Memorial.
I really love this album. Anywhere where people can kind of get updated on your projects or your Substack
Yeah,
or
yeah. I'm resurrecting my Substack. I had this really aggressive posting schedule, as you know. I had like a whole editorial calendar, and then it started with the LA fires. Like that was just the beginning of it, and then now it's 4 months later, and I still haven't posted. But I got a bunch in the can. I'm about to post. So that's the Heated Forest, heatedforest.com. That's my Substack.
I love your writing. It's so fun reading your Substack. So definitely encourage people to check that out. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing your creative process. Appreciate it. I think it's always interesting to hear from different artists and kind of how they do things, and for us to just remind each other that, there's no one right way to do things, and really talking about it and having community is like really helps.
There actually is one right way, and it's my way.
Well,
Hello?
keep an eye out for that Substack.
I'm just joking.
One Right Way by Ben Christopher. Thank you for joining us for In the Making, our standalone podcast about the creative process. So thanks for joining, Ben.
Thanks for having me.